that, we go to the first one, and that's when Mr. Kildee makes to make an announcement.
Due to the fact that I lease property from the applicant that owns this parcel that's in discussion tonight, under the advice of our attorney, I'll have to recuse myself from the discussion and the vote of this.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kildee. You can go watch us on TV, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. So this is why we try to do our part to make sure we follow the rules and do everything correctly. So let's give him a moment, and then we'll... Okay, let's move on to number 1.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald. So the first referral request we received was from Young & Company GC, Inc. It's a request to amend the general plan land use element designation from agriculture to general commercial for approximately 38 acres. The property site is located at the northeast corner of Las Posas Road and Pleasant Valley Road. It's just north of the city limits. The surrounding land uses include the Camarillo Airport to the west and commercial and agriculture to the immediate north. Then we have agriculture to the east and south, with the county of Ventura bordering the site further to the south. As you see, the site is currently being utilized for agricultural purposes. The request includes a concept for a sports complex facility intended to support indoor volleyball, basketball, and indoor soccer tournaments. It includes possible construction of 2 air dome structures. They would each be approximately 108,000 square feet in size and potentially up to 80 feet in height. And they would be located near the central eastern portion of the existing 37.7 acre site. The initial design concept also includes 40-foot tall facade walls, so there could be architectural treatment in the front of the air dome structures along the perimeter of those buildings. The 2 air dome structures will be connected by an approximate 110,000 square foot, 3-story central building. It'll be utilized for access, team meeting space, offices, conference rooms, a viewing mezzanine, and a roof deck. This development concept also includes a possible provision of up to 2,500 parking spaces and parking fields surrounding the proposed building sites. And it also includes 70,000 square feet of ancillary commercial on the corner of Pleasant Valley Road and Las Posas, which would be intended to allow for support retail services and possible support medical uses. In addition to the general plan amendment, if this proposal is referred for study, this application will also necessitate a zone change, a commercial plan development permit application, a conditional use permit application for the sports complex and exceeding a height standard of 35 feet, and environmental analysis subject to our city's requirements and state requirements with CEQA. This is a preliminary conceptual site plan that shows the 37.7 acre property. And it shows the structures, as I said, in the central eastern portion of the site with some ancillary commercial out on the corner, and then surrounded with parking and landscaping of shade trees. The property is currently designated agriculture, and it's predominantly surrounded by agricultural designations. And the zoning is agricultural exclusive, and it's also surrounded by agricultural exclusive zoning.
That's it. Okay.
Yes, that concludes the presentation on this item. So if we would like to call Councilmember Kildee back.
What we're going to do, we're going to ask questions. Council gets to ask questions of you. Then we're going to hear from the applicant. So we're going to
Okay, that's fine.
finish one before we move on to the next one. So this is questions of staff. Mr. Morgan?
I got a couple of questions. One is, it says 80 feet tall. Well, you know, our ordinance says something 75 feet, I think, is our limit. But can this proposed project, like some stadiums, be sunk into the ground where you walk down into the playing area? This way it reduces the size of that, the facility.
That's a good question, and I think that the applicant will be able to present a little bit more detail on that during the applicant presentation.
Because sometime, I know you're going to have to cover and expand that roadway. If you don't, you won't make it. That roadway is going to have to be expanded, and you're going to need dirt. And so that would be one of the ways of using that dirt, by sinking that building down some so it's not so obtrusive. So we can, you know, and enjoy it if we needed to. But traffic and that are my concerns.
Okay.
Ms. Craig?
Yes, the request is to be changed to a commercial general plan land use designation. Is that the only general plan land use designation under which they could build a sports complex like this?
No, it could also be, it's a CUP in the LM zone, so it could be industrial. And then, other than that, I believe that would be it.
Thank you.
That's it? Mr. Trimley? Okay. Now we will hear from the applicant on this project. It is in the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor McDonald and City Council members. My name is Scott Young. I'm a resident of Ventura County. I moved here in 1971. I grew up here. I went to school, played sports here, and my 3 children who are now grown, as I've also done. I've seen Camarillo and this extraordinary part of Southern California grow and evolve from single-lane freeways and strawberry fields to where we are today. So tonight, I'm proud as an architect, parent, and resident to present a very different type of project beneficial to Camarillo and the entire Ventura County area. One which meets the needs for athletic and recreational facilities for team sports and makes these same facilities available for community use. So what is Pacific Coast Sports Center? This venue is designed to be different than any other sports tournament or training facility because it is both a commercial and community venue. Its size supports large tournaments, but also provides needed space for community team sports, individual training, and local business and community events. The need for both courts and for community space has defined this project. Club, high school, and college teams need courts. Community-based programs like Park Rec, City Senior Leagues, church and home schools, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, all need additional court and facility space, especially for larger events. The site design of Pacific Coast Sports Center starts by revering its history as citrus groves. Rows of trees along the street perimeter define the site, and entry to it will be like driving into the lemon groves. Large numbers of canopy trees maintain a cool, healthier environment for outdoor plazas and gathering places. Rows of solar shade parking, Napa-style xeriscape landscaping, coastal breezes, cooling the outdoor environment, sand volleyball courts, a workout therapy swim pool, running and training paths, and workout courses. The building design would consist of 2 air dome structures, as already described, hosting approximately 32 courts or open area for multiple small, medium, and large events. A 3-story built structure between the domes provide viewing mezzanines over the courts, a world-class elite sports training facility, additional flex rooms for workouts and meetings, a roof deck for outdoor training and ocean views. A separate supporting structure, as was mentioned by Mr. Vaca, supports commercial use, which will be designated for restaurants, sports-related shops, and services that complement the health-focused nature of the facility. On the commercial level, this is a private-funded facility designed to host team tournaments for volleyball, basketball, futsal, which is indoor soccer, and other sports. There's a growing demand for club and college-bound athletes and training programs, which we propose and intend will support the project's community-based sports programs. Each economic benefits for community restaurants, hotels, and businesses are expected to be significant. On the community level, this project is designed to support local school and community sports program needs, as already mentioned. There's also strong demand for business and community meetings, activities, and events which will be met. The American Red Cross has expressed interest in this facility as a mass emergency center and shelter with facilities and resources for several thousand people, training, exercises, and resources for emergency preparedness. Pacific Coast Sports Center will be known as a community place, a safe, exciting facility to play, train, and just get together. Our desire is to have painted a clear picture of what this project will mean to Camarillo and the extraordinary value and service it represents to athletes, youth, adults, seniors, families, and the community as a whole. Your support on this project would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. God bless.
No clapping.
Ask question. Can we ask questions?
Before you leave, this is the opportunity, if you don't mind, the council can ask you a few questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Morgan.
Have you talked to the university because they're looking for facilities later? when they can start doing some volleyball and those kinds of things at the university, they can use your facility?
Yeah, Sasha will speak more about that. We've talked to Cal State Channel Islands, and they're very excited about the project.
Okay, the other thing is, when I mentioned the sunken building a little bit, so it takes it down some, there's a lot of hockey, ice hockey rinks that are that way, down. This would also alleviate the I don't call it eye view, I mean the view from the public, but it would help. And it would make it an interesting complex to be able to walk down into it and do it. Other thing, too, is traffic mitigation, really tough. There are certain hours of the day that it's just swamped over there. We have 4:30 and 5 o'clock. What do you think about how you can mitigate that?
Well, if I could address your concern about maybe sinking the building down, we would be happy to explore that, and we've actually talked about that a little bit with some of the staff. Our concern would be some of the hydrology conditions, the high water tables in that area, and we are in a FEMA 500-year flood zone area. So we want to maintain the ability to keep the facility safe, keep it as a potentially a facility for the American Red Cross as an emergency center without the possibility of flooding. So we would have to balance those two and look at that. But I think your suggestion of using export to help with the infill of the roads, the expansion of that, which we do anticipate having to do through traffic mitigation, we'll explore that during the CEQA process.
Okay, thank you.
A question?
Ms. Craven?
Yes, you're requesting that it be changed to a commercial land use designation. Would you object to an industrial? You heard Mr. Vaca say that this would be allowed in that.
It's an interesting proposition. We'd have to check with the landowner and make sure that would be acceptable with him. We're proposing to lease this property, and we would have to look at that and see if that's acceptable with them. But I don't see anything that would prohibit us exploring that, certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thanks, Mr. Young.
Thank you.
Do you have with you tonight, I noticed that with the application was a retention and relocation economic, a fiscal study by SoCal Edison. Did you bring with you tonight any analysis of the underlying demand for the site?
We have looked at and talked to several organizations, some of which are here tonight, to explore how much their growth is anticipated. To speak to the studies, we have done previous studies, which we would want to update if we get past this evening, to explore the feasibility and demand. Absolutely.
Right. The Edison study doesn't deal with that specific issue, though.
Right.
My question was really focused on the underlying demand.
Yeah, the demand that we see is really based on my involvement with my kids and having been involved in sports for 10, 11 years now. We've seen an increasing need. I think that we would do a feasibility study. We have actually an organization lined up to conduct that study once we get past this evening to make sure that it is a proper approach for us.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? I have just a couple. The dome. What's the lifespan of that dome versus a traditional
That's a
building?
good question. The domes are typically warranted for a 20-year period, but it's made of a Tedlar. The type of dome that we're talking about will stay clean. It has a Tedlar, which is sort of a Teflon type of a coating, so any dirt and whatnot would come off of it. That helps it from eroding over time, exposure. It also has UV protection, so we expect it to be between 20 and possibly 35 years.
But the light shines through, right? So it's not.
Yeah, that's a good question too. These are translucent materials, so we intend to have light coming through the dome into the sports facility to light it during night or daytime, which will reduce our energy costs and the consumption of electricity. So.
But from the others going the opposite direction, at night the light, you'd be able to see through the dome?
Yeah,
the light?
I've spoken with our lighting consultants in Canada who produced LED fixtures that this will have, and there's less than 0.9% of the light would be diffused through the surfaces. And we have photographs that we'd be happy to share with you.
Okay. And there's a reason for suggesting the dome versus a traditional building besides
Yes.
cost?
There's a couple of reasons. One of them is economic. With the cost per square foot for building a dome is drastically less than a built structure. The ability to have a safe facility for something like the American Red Cross, you don't have the seismic and lateral considerations you got for earthquake, and it would make it a more stable facility. And then we're looking at the time for construction is also reduced significantly.
And you mentioned that you are looking to lease the property, so who would have control of what the proposed commercial area?
For the corner commercial property, that would be maintained by us. That would be, again, all privately funded. That would be maintained under our umbrella.
So not under the property owner, but under
Correct.
you?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now. And I interrupted you in the middle. Do you have another half to your presentation?
We do have two more presenters. They'll help explain
Okay.
different aspects in the community
Okay.
organizations that we've worked with.
I appreciate that. And before you start, I hate to be the bad person in the room tonight, but we do have to keep the door clear. And I can see you because I'm staring right at it. I know there's a little more room in that corner if maybe you can all just move just enough to have a doorway open before the fire marshal gets upset with us. And I thought I saw him, so that's why I'm peering around the room. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, sorry.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Sasha Pack, and I live here in Camarillo and also own a business here. I'm also the director of I'm also the director of athletics at the proposed Pacific Coast Sports Center. The City of Camarillo has over 20 sports organizations that average 7 or more teams per organization. This could be club teams, high school teams, city and private organizations, and the university. Ventura County alone has over 100 of these same groups and average around 15 teams per group. That represents over 15,000 youth that compete in sports in our community. Where do they all practice? Where do they all play? Well, that's where we come in. I was born and raised in Camarillo, and being part of this community and playing sports for years, I did what many athletes do in this area. I traveled to LA and beyond to take part in high-level play and to be seen by scouts and NCAA coaches. Each weekend, I would travel to LA, Orange County, Las Vegas, and even Washington, D.C. to play in college viewing tournaments. Thankfully, my parents could afford this, and we were able to take time to drive me down to LA and beyond during the weekdays for an hour or two in the car. This is where the vision started. My vision for this project was to be able to bring athletics and sports events to this city to better enable our youth the opportunity to compete at a higher level in athletics here in Camarillo and Ventura County. We have many talented athletes, which are here today, in this community who travel to LA areas just like I did to take part in competitive sports. This project gives our youth the opportunity to stay local and bring more talent to this area. In the past few months, we have spoken with many different organizations, such as the Camarillo High School, the Eagle Soccer Clubs, the YMCA, Pleasant Valley Parks and Rec, and the biggest and ongoing need for these groups is court space, is indoor fields, and the development of athletics in this community. The problem is, and the consistent ongoing struggle to find courts for these high schools, clubs, parks and rec, and it is our goal to be able to facilitate these organizations with the amount of courts needed. We'll help the community organizations to be able to grow, enhance, and evolve, and also help facilitate the need for more court times for practice, games, open gyms, and tournaments. I'm an alumni from CSUCI, and we have been in constant communication to help give way to grow and expand their existing intramural programs and also, hopefully, bring NCAA Division II to their athletic program. This proposed project isn't just limited to youth athletes. We have included a training facility that is equipped with state-of-the-art physical therapy, orthopedics, chiropractic care, and sports medicine. Along with expert strength and conditioning coaches, we provide the community with a much-needed resource in one location. This is geared towards not just our youth, but our elderly and the general public looking for a better quality of life. We have been in constant communication with local organizations, regional and national sports, to host tournaments and sporting training camps all in one location. The average today is multiple locations, city or county-wide, for these tournaments. Please consider all the positive impacts that this facility will create for our youth, our local programs, and our community. Thank you for your time, and we look forward for your support of the Pacific Coast Sports Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just one. Oop, don't leave yet.
Back for a
Come back
second.
up here.
We have a question.
I see, we've got these great pictures here, of course. They're all renderings, but they're nice pictures. There's one that shows, it looks like you might have covers over part of it. I don't know if that's just the parking area that's gray and so on, but have you considered using solar cells to offset your energy costs?
Yes.
You got a lot of room here for that.
Yes. Seth is going to touch a little bit on that, and our architect also can do.
Okay. I should be asking this later, but it just got me curious here.
If I could just address the question, because it's a very good one. We definitely, again, want to go back to the energy conservative nature of the project itself. We would put as many alternating rows of solar panels, which also work as shading canopies for parking, and alternate those with rows of trees. So that's been considered in our design.
That's what it looks like here, and that's why I thought I would bring it up, see if that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? Mr. Trimley, a question for that one? Okay, you've got one more part then to your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, city staff, and Camarillo residents. I am Seth Bowman with Young & Company proposing the Pacific Coast Sports Center. Although the main focus through our preliminary planning of the proposed project has been sports-driven, we have also been fortunate to realize the major importance of a facility like this for the benefit of the community in regards to venue and other recreational needs. Thus far, and throughout operation, we plan to continue a wonderful working relationship with local tourism and visitors bureaus like the Ventura County Lodging Association to accommodate a major need for a venue of this type. Conferences and venues that have been brought to our attention to date include bridal trade shows, doctors, dentists, and pastoral conventions, California Charter Schools Association Annual Conference, and many, many more. Southern California Edison's study does show that our city will provide full-time staff positions and positively impact the city as a whole through incidental revenue increase to local businesses and organizations. We plan to work cohesively with current businesses and operations in the city to make this a seamless addition to the community and a recognizable name that the city of Camarillo and its residents will be proud of. In our community outreach to date, we have met with organizations such as Camarillo Chamber of Commerce, Camarillo Premium Outlets, Camarillo Airport, Camarillo Hotel and Tourism Association, the Ventura County Lodging Association, Amateur Athletic Union, Camarillo High School, Rio Mesa High School, Oxnard Union High School District, Cal State University Channel Islands, Pepperdine University, Ventura County Transportation Commission, several local club level representatives in basketball, volleyball, cheer, soccer, and several other sports, the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, American Red Cross, and these are just some that I'd like to mention tonight. Although many of these organizations cannot support a private entity like ourselves, I do want to let you know some of the outreach that we've done thus far, and I'd also like to draw attention to some of the people in the room that are in support of us. If they could stand, maybe raise their hand. So these are just some. I want you to see their beautiful, healthy faces.
They're all the ones standing.
I see all the young ones. I see all the young ones standing. Thank you.
They're a little upset. They wanted to cheer and clap, but we will respect your request, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much.
So I once again thank you on behalf of our team for considering this project. And I do have one more request. We do have a lot of students in the crowd this evening, and they are in finals week. So out of respect, I'd like if they could potentially leave at the end of our portion. But I want to respect council and city staff.
Oh, absolutely. They certainly can. Let me see if there's any questions for you.
Absolutely.
Any questions from? I have just a couple. In your search to bring this facility to Camarillo, did you look for other spots within the city that wouldn't require a general plan referral? And can you tell us a little bit about that search?
We have searched through Ventura County as a whole area. Originally, several years ago, I think it's 3 or 4 now, our first stop was actually the wonderful city of Camarillo. It's our original choice for this project. We are a project that might not be, looked upon as something very simple. So we kind of presented it, and it was potentially something that wouldn't move forward at that time in the city, just based on politics and the Camarillo residents. We have looked in other cities in this area, but frankly, I'm not sure why we'd want to be anywhere else other than the city of Camarillo.
You're a politician rather than a businessman. Let's see, I have two more. The airport, I don't know if they were one that you mentioned in your long list, but has there been at least initial contact as far as being in the flight path and so forth?
Yes, Todd is here this evening. I hope it's not to completely shut us down. We have met with Todd and Jorge. We've met
We'll have a
with Ventura
speech.
County
Okay.
Transportation Commission. I think that we're okay. I'd love for him to speak on his own behalf. I don't want to put words in his mouth, obviously, but I know we have met with him and Jorge over at the airports.
Okay.
So.
And the city clerk is motioning that he does have a speaker sheet, so we'll hear from him. And my last one, you were talking all about sports, and then you went into a little bit more like you were getting into being a conference center. Is that your intent, or that's just a side?
Our main focus has always been sports driven. We want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. We want a safe haven specifically for youth. It's a passion of ours as our team and as an organization, but we see the need for it across the board through any age level. It's been through our preliminary process that we were approached by several organizations that have shown us such a need in this area, in Camarillo and the county, for potential other meeting spaces and a venue for corporate events, trade shows, things of that nature. Our original focus has never been that, but we feel we could potentially provide a very wonderful service to the community by having a safe haven for, once again, other events of that nature.
Okay.
I do have a question.
And you are aware that we're working on a conference center right up the road? Were you aware of that?
I'm very aware of that,
Okay,
yes.
all righty. As long as we're working in partnership there. Mr. Morgan?
That good old conference center prepares a hotel for all this, too. So that's going to be a positive. When you're looking at this and seeing, I go out there now and then. Every great once in a while I make a mistake, and I go on that road at 4:30, 5 o'clock. It is unbearable. And not just that one, but the one that goes to Potrero and Lewis and so on. You're going to have to look at ways of mitigating that. One of the things I'd like you to maybe consider, things starting after maybe 5:30, 6-ish, so that traffic lets up before you start doing things.
And to touch just on that, a majority of all of our events and the focus of our center is off-peak hours, whether it be athletics in the evening. Some of our
Right.
tournaments of that nature are more weekend-driven. So we do see that there is a potential problem in the traffic in that area, and we know that. Like I said, we've met with Ventura County Transportation Commission. We'd love to work with them and mitigate any problems that we do foresee and will run into, but we are primarily focused on off-peak hours.
So you'll watch your times. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I guess as a follow-up to that, though, aren't you proposing to be youth sports being able to use it as well, which would be after-school hours?
Correct. That's something we'd like to. A big thing that we've dealt with in some of our community outreach is we're not looking to create our own youth clubs. We're not looking to pull from Parks and Rec, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. That is definitely not our focus. But if they need a facility to accommodate anything that they are doing, we'd love to provide that facility.
Which would use it in those off-peak hours that
Absolutely.
you would be able to use them. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And that completes the applicant's presentation, correct? Oh, almost. Okay, sorry.
Hi, my name is Gary Young with Young and Company. I really wanted to address the traffic because that is always a concern. We will work with all the municipal agencies on staggering our event start times and our event end times.
Perfect.
And we know that's there. We understand we're going to have to contribute monies for the improvements of the road, signalization, perhaps even a new signal. We accept those responsibilities. On to a little more of the venue, Seth cut it back a little bit. We took one of our entire structures and redesigned the electrical panel and the use panels. So if you had, say, a trade show come in, and I think we've all been to the trade shows and toe kicked the duct tape over the wires, we're going to literally hundreds of boxes that will be able to be opened up. A trade show can come in, their electric is covered. We've changed up some of our mechanical for venues like that. And I think what is going to drive our maximum occupancy in one of the domes is going to be our parking.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
Okay, let me see if there's any questions. No? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is the time for public comment. And let's see if I can read everyone's handwriting. We have quite a few. What I'm going to do is call the first one. I will give the second name so that person can be on deck, so to speak, to see if we can I'm going to move things along because this is the first of 6. Remember, you have a time, you have a clock, I have a clock, and we'd appreciate it if you can stick to those 3 minutes. The first speaker would be Rebecca Evans, and the next one, Amanda Fagan. And again, state your name for the record and your city. You don't have to give your street address. I did.
Good evening, Mayor, excuse me, and council members. I appreciate your time. My name is Rebecca Evans, and I represent the Ventura County Lodging Association as the executive director. We're made up of 70 hotels within the cities of Camarillo, Oxnard, Port Hueneme, and Ventura, and we work with all the local visitor bureaus. I'm here to ask for your support for the proposed venue, the Pacific Coast Sports Center, as my office receives hundreds of requests annually for space to hold meetings of all types that are too large for any location within Ventura County Coast. I have a list I'm going to be submitting of over 37 groups with their numbers attached to it, which are just only some of the groups that want to have meetings in this location. Now that fills up, my job is to fill up the hotels and fill up their conference centers. So when we do have that conference center in Camarillo, that is my number one fill, and then we'll grow to the next level for the Pacific Coast Sports Center. The other thing that we look at is we also have sports venues, or sports visitors that want to come in as teams and that sort of thing. So we have people across the country that would like to come here. Some of the people that have asked to have meetings here are like the California County Information Services Directors, Helms-Briscoe, California State Sheriff's Associations, California Disability Services Association, KKLA National Day of Prayer. These are just some groups that will stay in the hotels, which is my number one goal, and which would in turn add to the local economy in all kinds of areas all across Ventura County Coast. I'm submitting these letters of support for your review, and in closing, I'd like to say that the benefit of having the location here in Camarillo outweighs a lot, and it will add a significant amount to the tax base, but not to the city's need to provide services. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank her for having, our hotels are 85% full, most of the time on weekends.
86.
Yep, I got it.
1%.
Thank you. So it's Amanda Fagan, and the next one would be Adriana Heinzer. I may have that wrong. So Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor McDonald and members of the City Council. My name is Amanda Fagan, and I'm the Community Planning Liaison Officer for Naval Base Ventura County. Thank you for the opportunity to review and comment on the proposed general plan amendment referrals for 2017. Each of the proposed general plan amendment referral sites is located outside of the 60 decibel community noise equivalent level noise contours, and also outside of the accident potential zones for the Naval Base Ventura County Point Mugu Airfield, in accordance with the 2015 Air Installations Compatible Use Zone Study. So again, they're located outside of those high noise and safety contours. Each of the general plan amendment referral sites is located, though, within either the approach and departure clearance surfaces or the outer horizontal surface for the Point Mugu Airfield. Within these areas, structures over 500 feet tall would potentially be concerned. Of course, none of the projects propose such a structure. Aircraft on approach to runway 0321 may pass over the area at approximately 3,500 to 4,000 feet above ground level, so residents and visitors may see and possibly hear aircraft on approach to our runway. With respect to this particular proposal, I'd simply appreciate consideration of lighting conditions that would minimize excess ambient light, to preserve dark skies and avoid impacts to night training and testing operations, and also to consider the use of roof treatments and solar coatings on the solar panels that don't create glare for the airfield. And it sounds like the applicant is thinking about those things already. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And those are my comments.
Great, thank you very much. So next we have Adriana, then we have Romeo Damano.
Good Good evening, Mayor McDonald and council members. My name is Adriana Huizar with the Camarillo Hotel and Tourism Association. Just a brief background on our organization. We were formed as a TBID in 2014 under a 2% hotel occupancy assessment. So our purpose of our organization is to market our beautiful city of Camarillo. We want to attract those visitors and make sure that we get a return increase in hotel occupancy. Within the last couple of years, we found that visitors are coming to Camarillo to get married in one of our unique venues, some for sports tournaments or festivals, and yes, many are coming for shopping. Every one of these are great reasons to visit Camarillo, and with the help of our marketing efforts, our hotel occupancy has increased year after year. The Camarillo Hotel and Tourism Association is in support of the proposed Pacific Coast Sports Center project. We have met with the group, Gary Young, Seth, to discuss the plans for the proposed sports complex and feel that their design will allow much needed space for local and regional sports tournaments, as well as meeting space. Being a member of the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce has allowed me the opportunity to meet many Camarillo business owners, managers, who have reached out to me looking for meeting space. And unfortunately, many of our venues cannot accommodate the capacity that they're looking for. Due to the large venues, many local companies are holding their meetings outside of our city, which means if they're bringing visitors, they're not staying in our hotels or spending money in our local businesses. Allowing the sports complex in Camarillo would not only alleviate the lack of space for tourism and meetings, but it will also help increase our hotel occupancy, therefore increasing our Camarillo's TOT. With the new proposed hotels coming into Camarillo, it would be great to have additional attractions to take up excess capacity of hotel rooms. We look forward to collaborating on this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next we have Romeo. If you notice, we're all on a first-name basis around here. So, and then we have Danny Bosson, I think.
Hello, my name is Dr. Romeo Di Maano, and my residence is 602 Corte Regalo in Camarillo. I'm the owner and clinic director of Active Spine and Sports Care. My practice specializes in orthopedics and rehabilitation. And throughout the years, I have completed further training in sports medicine field. In doing so, I have seen firsthand the progressive changes happening within the sports medicine and athletic community, and also how we can benefit from these changes. I have lived and practiced in Camarillo for over 10 years, and I believe our community has done an excellent job at introducing sports to our youth, in which my own children have greatly benefited from. However, at the same time, I'm seeing an alarming increase in sports injuries to our young athletes. I've seen 11-year-old pitchers with torn labrums in the shoulder, 13-year-old soccer players with torn meniscus and ligaments, and high school athletes with herniated discs. As the list goes on, the incidences are increasing to what seems to be affecting younger and younger athletes. As healthcare professionals, intervention can also come in the form of education and information. This is a great opportunity for us as a community to build something from the ground up where a facility like this can serve as an up-to-date resource for both existing and new sports medicine and athletic programs. Sports medicine programs that will be able to speak to all levels of our active population, young, elderly, beginners, elite, and professional. Programs such as injury prevention, sports-specific movement deficiency, mentorship programs connecting young athletes with collegiate and professional athletes, and even programs where young students can shadow sports medicine professionals to gain insight, direction, and guidance on possible career in healthcare. Overall, I see this facility being a huge benefit and resource to the sports medicine and athletic community that the city of Camarillo needs and deserves. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So next it's Danny Bosson and then Mike Meschler. And please tell me if I'm saying your name wrong. I apologize.
That's right. I'm Danny Bonson. I'm from Camarillo. My daughter is a senior at Camarillo High School. She's the captain of the basketball team. She's been involved in sports ever since she was little. She did great in soccer, volleyball, and basketball. And she's also played club in volleyball, basketball. In order for her to really compete at the level she needed, we spent an unbelievable amount of time and money traveling to LA, Anaheim, Torrance, and so on to attend tournaments and training at facilities such as this sports center. She eventually had to pick a sport, which is basketball, and she played on a club team in LA, which is where these teams are because they have the facilities to support it. I drove every Tuesday and Thursday after school to Linwood and every Saturday and Sunday to Santa Monica. During the week, it was about 2.5 hours to get there if I was lucky in the traffic. And they practiced for a couple hours, and we'd get home at 11 o'clock at night. My daughter, who has a 4.4 GPA, would do her homework in the car on the way down and eat her dinner and read on the way home. We did this because, like I said, that's where the facilities were to accommodate the teams like this. There are other players from Ventura County making that drive, and even kids from Santa Barbara area who drive all that way every week. There are plenty of talented and dedicated kids in our area and all the sports who deserve a sports center. That is not a long commute to get to, and parents deserve to not sit in traffic for hours. And I know I speak for many athletes and parents. We're very excited to see a facility like this in Camarillo. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One comment to her. By the way, congratulations for that team. I think you're 20-3 and leading the league.
That's right.
And should go far in CIF, so congratulations for Camarillo girls.
Thank you. We love to see you all out at the game.
Yeah.
You can applaud that one. Okay, back to order. So Mike Mishler, and then we'll have Todd McNamee next.
Hi, good evening. Mike Mishler, Pleasant Valley Rec and Park board member, and been a volunteer with youth sports and ASO regional commissioner. I started up the first ASO spring league season in Ventura in Santa Barbara County. I started up the ASO adult soccer league we have here in town, blah, blah, blah. Goes on and on for decades. I just want to mention, this is basically the first time I've seen any of this information. Someone from their organization came in and talked to Mary Otten, our general manager, about 2 weeks ago for a couple of minutes. Our board has absolutely no idea what's going on, and with all this, there's a major complex. And I would have hoped that these guys would have come in a couple of months ago and sit down with our board and staff and go through, because I have a lot of questions here, and I'm not going to be able to go through them all here, of course. But I have a lot of potential issues with this, and I would like to see this put off until they can come in and talk to us. For example, we have probably the best soccer facility in Southern California, if not probably. Then we have.
Say we do.
We
Go
do.
ahead.
We have top-notch baseball. We're going to finish off boys baseball at Freedom Park. That's going to be a top-notch. We have girls softball. Basketball is a major concern. All the board members know that basketball is a major issue. That's one of our things on our list to try to address, and that is a major issue. Basketball is a problem. There's some other sports out there. So there's some issues there to work. I'm not sure how we provide facilities at almost no cost to the local community. I'm not sure how a private organization is going to be able to provide facilities at essentially almost no cost to these organizations. That's one of the questions I would have. Weekend hotel use. We have tournaments. We put on many events that occupy. We fill up all the hotels in Camarillo. They overfill into Oxnard and into Thousand Oaks. That our ASO Strawberry Tournament, which is 2 weekends in May, we have 115 teams each weekend coming in. These are families. These are families who come out. They spend 4 hours on the soccer field. They spend the rest of the day shopping and doing stuff. If we have another event in town, that's not going to add any money. These people are going to be then pushed out further. We don't have, even with the new hotel space. I also have a little bit of a concern if they're going to be sucking off players from the existing. Our partnership with the youth organizations is they have volunteers that run those things, and we provide the facilities. If these people are going to be pulling off those hardcore best players into siphoning them off, the remaining 2/3 of the kids are not going to be able to have enough critical mass to have a structure left, and they may actually collapse and fall. So yeah, you maybe improve the conditions for the top third, but the two bottom thirds may be wiped out because they're not going to have enough volunteer base. There's a whole list of issues. I would have preferred to. I'm not sure if this is going to be a win-win or an issue with this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So next we have Todd, and then we have Jacob Sosha.
Good evening, Mayor McDonald and council members. My name is Todd McNamee, Director of Airports for the County of Ventura. So some of your questions were, has the airport been involved in the process? And I wanted to thank staff. We have a very positive working relationship with your staff, and we were brought into the process early on to provide input into this process and onto the project. The project is designed in such a way it falls outside of the traffic pattern zone. You know, every time one of these developments comes forward to us, the first thing we do is we review it against the airport land use plan. And so to see if it's consistent use or not. This particular project has been designed where it's completely consistent within the traffic pattern zone. We would hope that we would be able to get a navigation easement over the parcel. It really provides that disclosure that it's close to an airport and also protects our ability to maintain flight patterns around that area. The other things we expressed concern on early on were traffic and lighting, of course, but it sounds like those things will be addressed through the process. And of course, the FAA will have an opportunity to review as we go along. Again, appreciate the opportunity to provide input. It is a consistent use, and it appears, with the exception of the last gentleman, that you have a lot of support out there to fill what may be an unmet need now in the city. So,
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Jacob and then Richard Castaneda. And excuse me for us calling you Richard, but as I say, we're on a first-name basis. Right?
Hello, I'm Jacob Sosa. I play the Moore Park College men's volleyball team, and I'm here to support the building of the sports complex. I think it will benefit not just Ventura, not just Camarillo, but Ventura County. And one reason I have for that is, like the gentleman said back there, crime is up 18%. And I think with a sports complex like this, it can get our kids off the streets and into the gym. Thank you. Nights like these.
Oh, great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we have Richard Costanza, and then I have a sheet here from Claudia Richardson, but you didn't put a number down, so I want to make sure it's not for this item, and if not, we'll hold it over, and you can let our city clerk know which item it should be on. So, Richard. No? How about Ricardo? Maybe that's what's wrong. Ricardo Costanza. How about Ricardo Castaneda? I'm going to keep trying until I can read this. No?
Is there a Ricardo C in the house?
I'm going to keep trying, huh? No? All right, let me ask this question. Would anybody else like to address us on this item that hasn't put on a sheet, and maybe we'll get the right one? No? Maybe he had to leave. Maybe he had to leave. So we have one other speaker. If you didn't fill out a card, will you do so afterwards? So, oh, you did. Oh, are you? Oh, you got it. Please state your name for the record.
Richardson. Pull a mic down, please.
Okay. I raised my 4 kids here. I've been a native here my entire life. I have business in Camarillo, and I think it's a great concept. I think the magnitude and the size is huge. I understand the business index in Camarillo, and that concerns me. I mean, if you drive around and you watch business and you see these teams that are already set in motion and such, and you have this huge building, it's going to be great for many respects, but if they start having vendor events, then that's going to draw a lot of outside business in, and I think ultimately, one, my concern is the rate of local business and the success of it, and 2, it does bother me to see that the zoning would be changed from agriculture when they stated earlier, when you asked them if there's the ability to put it somewhere else. I know there's a lot on Dawson. There's other areas that could be key to where it's not butting into that corner. It could still be great for the hotels. It could still be great for the airport, but it wouldn't afflict that traffic pattern. I mean, tractors go up and down that road all the time. You know, are they going to take and make a 4-lane or a 5-lane road, so a 6-lane road, so they could have that magnitude of traffic be accommodated? And so I know that the Ventura Local Formation Commission, I know that it doesn't fall within that means either. So on that note, I raised my kids with sports. I've always been athletic myself. I didn't come here to be against it, but I think those are valid issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So that is the end of the pile for the blue speaker sheets. We had quite a pile of yellow comment cards, which I didn't get to see because I was passing. I don't know if you don't mind. Yeah. So with that, would anyone else like to address us on this item that perhaps you didn't get your sheet filled in? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. We will turn to staff. Is there anything you want to add from what you've heard, or any questions you might answer?
No, not at this time, Mayor McDonald.
Okay. Then I'm going to give the applicant also a chance of anything else you want to add or question you might want to answer.
Wanted to answer, just kind of clarify, we are a tournament team.
Could you speak right into the microphone,
I sure can.
please?
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
We don't think we'll have any local effect on drawing kids away from the YMCA or Pleasant Valley. Our system is not set up for those type of local teams. We're much more of a event tournament driven there. I think one of the councilmen mentioned, are we aware of the 700 potential conference center? We are. Our target would be on conferences that are over that. We don't see competition there. I think we would actually complement each other, especially in using their hotels. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I turn to the council. I had personally thought to myself that I would like to hear all of these before we take action on any of them, because while they're all different, they all affect us. You know, they might be taking ag land, might be include housing. That was my thought, because I'd like to hear everything first, but I will ask all of you your questions. Would you like to take them one by one and make a decision here, or would you rather wait and hear all six and
We'd like to take them one by one, because the people who are here for that item may not be here at midnight when we finish the last one.
I noticed that most of them that were on the walls left.
Well, you still got a few out there that are waiting at the door.
Okay. Well, with that, then let's go on. We'll turn to council comments, and Mr. Trimley, you want to start? Mrs. Craven?
I'll start.
Okay.
There obviously is a lot of support for this, but my main concern is the request to change it to a land use designation of commercial. My concern is that the property owner is a shopping center owner, and that this is very close to the outlet center. If this didn't go through for any reason, and this is just an approval to go ahead and look at it, if we were to, when it came back, change it to commercial, then that'd be a green light for any commercial that wanted to go there, because it wouldn't come back to us. I really hope that if this is approved, they will consider and discuss with the owner of the property changing it to industrial, and then I would think it was an absolutely wonderful thing.
Can we ask a question of staff on your comment?
Well, he already told us we could do that.
But my question is that a decision that we could, in our referral, say we would approve it if it were industrial versus commercial?
You could refer it with that direction, yes.
Righty, working down this way. Are you finished?
If I may, Madam Mayor, if you'll remember, we are in a situation with another owner that requested a zone change to commercial. We entered into a reversion agreement with that owner, and that type of mechanism could also be used here.
Exactly.
That's worked out well.
I like that.
Mr. Trimley?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I want to make just a couple of preliminary comments because I'm the rookie up here. This is only my third substantive meeting, and I want to make sure that the public is aware on how I approach these decisions. It'll be the same way for each and every one of these general plan amendment referrals. It just happens that I get to pick on the Sports Center first because you're first up. It's really important to emphasize that everyone, applicants and opponents alike, are entitled to a fair process. And before I make a decision, I read the applications, I read the staff report, I do my homework, and I listen to the testimony, and I want to thank you for everyone who has participated this evening on this amendment referral and the yellow cards with your written comments as well as on your oral comments. The criteria that I use are not unique in terms of approaching these decisions. In fact, they're from a League of Cities presentation that I attended last week for new council members. First and foremost, yeah, I don't want to pretend. It was a boot camp if you really want to know about it, except there was no forced marches. First and foremost, it's, in my view, what is in the best interests of the city. And that involves examining the issues from different angles, and that's both long-term as well as short-term. And reasonable people can disagree on what's in the best interest of the city, and that's why community engagement is so important, so everyone is heard. So I salute all of you for being here this evening. It's wonderful to have you here. It's a balancing of competing interests. And other criteria that enter into my decision-making process is, what should our Camarillo community look like? Are there community needs that are not being met? How does the project relate to the surrounding environment? And you've heard some questions on that. Does the project enhance the community now and in the future? And is this project consistent with adopted plans? And I will be asking those same questions with respect to every amendment in front of us tonight. So again, thank you to everybody who is here, everyone who has expressed their opinion. I've read all the correspondence, all the emails. I suspect my colleagues have done exactly the same thing. And I really appreciate all of you being here this evening to express your views. It's very, very helpful input. Now, with respect to this particular GPA referral, it's an interesting proposal. There exists, can you hear me okay? There exists significant potential long-term economic benefits to the city. Use of hotels, shopping, restaurants, etc. And that's associated with this proposal in both the short term as well as in the long term, especially if the visitors who are envisioned to use the facility actually materialize. And so the question in my mind is whether the demographics and the need really exist. And I don't, as I'm sitting here now, I don't have a good handle on that issue. There is no analysis on the underlying demand, which is why I asked the question respectfully of the project proponents. The support has come from the Lodging Association and from other and from potential users, and that's great. But again, we don't have a handle on what the underlying demand is. So, in some ways, logically, it's kind of like the cart is going before the horse. In some ways, the economic impact study, as good as it is, the Edison study, doesn't address this issue. It's with respect to other impacts, and it makes certain assumptions based on certain underlying premises that we don't know whether those in fact exist. So in some ways it's akin to a field of dreams project, and I mean that with all respect. My concern is if the development goes, I have a couple of concerns. One is if the development goes forward. And tonight is just a study approval. It's not an approval of the project. But if the development goes forward, I don't want a white elephant to exist on the property. I hope there aren't any white elephants here. Anyway.
It's a big white building.
White dome.
That's true. You know, I didn't even think about that. I'm mindful that this project has not been approved in other jurisdictions. The same type of project, the City of Oxnard being the most recent example. So I'm also concerned that there was a lack of consultation with Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District. And to me, that's a crucial base. Since we're talking about sports, I'm going to use a baseball metaphor. That's a crucial base to touch. To me, that's like first base. And that base was not touched, and that does concern me. So there's that. There's the absence of the underlying demand, and we need something more on that. So the trade-off is, for this particular one, is long-term economic benefit versus loss of prime ag land and some pretty substantial traffic issues. And like Councilman Morgan, I and many of you, I suspect, have tried to pull out onto Pleasant Valley Road around 4:30 or 5 o'clock on an afternoon. It's tough. This general area of Camarillo is, in my personal view, more suited to this type of development than across town. Given the proximity of the airport, given the proximity of the retail area to the north, and so on, it's within the city's boundaries. It's within the city's curb line. As we're standing here, or is it, actually, I'm sitting. As we're sitting here, I don't see this necessarily as any kind of a domino for the development of other ag land east of this acreage, east of this parcel. And that is of concern. So I'm willing to support the referral, and I'm willing to support further study, but that should not be construed as my support for the project. I'm not there yet. My primary concern is whether this process or this project, if it's put in place, is going to be economically significant in the long run and is going to complement other sports programs and our recreation and park district and other things that we have going on here in Camarillo, as well as addressing some of the significant environmental concerns, prime ag land and traffic being probably the two most important, at least in my mind as I'm sitting here. So that's the end of my speech, but I'm willing to support it, but I'm a long way from any kind of an approval of the project in and of itself. Willing to support for study.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Morgan.
I don't know where to begin. I've got so many notes here and some of the questions I asked before. You answered some of those to my satisfactions about hours of work, hours of participation out there, which we're all worried about traffic. If I can take it away from those traffic hours, you accomplish one thing. And then riding the roadway out that way, we accomplish another thing. Because even in traffic hours, they'll have another right-hand turn lane and so on and so forth there. So you may improve some of that a little bit for us. When we look at, I really have respect for Mr. Mishler over there from Park and Rec. We're friends, and he's got a lot of good ideas, and he's done a lot for this community. And I share his concerns, but I see something else that I heard this evening. I heard you tell me the university needed a place to play and have games and everything else in the world, tournaments. But you also had gentlemen from Moore Park College, and I'm sure others from older people, older gentlemen, older tournaments than just the younger ones playing in the field. I think you're going to see a lot more of that involved in there, because it's not just be soccer. It's going to be volleyball in one of those, and that's a big sport around here. And so I think that you're going to have an older crowd, actually, because you have volleyball clubs here in town that have their own facilities, especially for younger ones. Traffic mitigation, that, and also I'd still like you to look at the sunken building thing, because it might work, and see how far you can go down as far as water is concerned below. Because you're going to have the flood water, the water flowing down, it's going to be encased now. So it won't be just going over into your project. This will also give provide stuff. Let me think. I wrote some stuff down real quick. Opportunity project proponents. Okay, this I'm almost sold, but not yet until I get some of these answers, these things answered, because I do see all the trees and all the things you're putting in here that keeps it green and keeps it solar cells, on and on and on. It helps the community, but I'd like to see it lowered. The roof treatments, I heard. If you can keep that like my young man there from the airport told us, that we can keep that from being glary for pilots landing. I know you're out of their path, but still they come in here and they look to the left, okay? At this point, I'm willing to refer this because I'd like to see more about answering all these questions and seeing, because it's a beautiful project to do. I mean, I don't care about what Oxnard did. They've got more ideas of growing in industrial and everything else in the world rather than this. But this would fit right in the middle of the whole county. Cal Lutheran might use it. Others might use it for facilities. I think it's going to be a lot older crowd using this facility than just those local and taking away those local. But I'm at this point willing to refer and see what comes back. But I encourage you to go over to their board, sit down, talk with them, see what their concerns are.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I had a long list, and let me see what hasn't been covered, and I'll try to sum mine up a little more succinctly rather than going through my whole long list that I had to start with. One of my prime concerns is the loss of ag land. That's a beautiful corner that's an entrance to this community that has been ag, I guess, forever. I have the fear that if that corner goes, then we will slowly work our way down Pleasant Valley Road until we're at Lewis. We've had other proposals that have come forward that have asked to come from the other direction. So I have a great fear that if we were to approve that, that would be the eventual, and we lose all of that whole row of ag land. I'm very concerned about traffic. It's a very, very busy corner. It's obviously, the street would have to be improved, much like Village at the Park did down at the other end of Pleasant Valley, in order to move traffic through there, because right now it's not much more than a farm road as far as, it's shoulders, and it's just, a two-lane road. I'm concerned about this dome. The idea of this white, and it might look like a big white elephant, I'm not sure, and particularly if it glows in the dark, so to speak. If your view from up on the hill is to look down and see these white, big white pods, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. Maybe it's not a bad thing. I don't know, but it's going to be very different. And as we heard from a representative from the base, they are after night skies and dark skies so that their pilots have that opportunity to fly safely. So that one bothers me a little bit too. I think that the other thing that really caught my attention is what Mrs. Craven talked about, and the fact that we're being requested to rezone this to commercial. I am very leery of doing that, because if indeed this didn't work out, we would have a piece of land that is now commercial that we probably never would have considered if we weren't looking at this sports complex. So I think for me, if we were to do it, refer it under an LM zoning rather than commercial, I might be more willing to say let's go for it. Let's see what happens. Remembering that tonight is simply giving the go-ahead to continue to study it. It costs a lot of money from the applicant, because the city's doesn't really, this isn't the city's project or the city's money that gets spent here. So they have to go into it aware that they have to pay for all these studies. They have to go through all of this, and there's no guarantee when you get to the end, and there's no guarantee that you can mitigate the problems that might exist, particularly traffic. We all know that there is no mitigation for the loss of ag land, so that one's just a given. So you have to decide if you can accept that. It is a for-profit center, so it's going to be a little bit different than what we see with Parks and Rec, and it's different in that regard. So if you're trying to make money, if you're trying to keep the lights on, my guess is you're going to want to use that facility as much as you can. So I can't imagine that to restrict it for not peak hours would be something that would be able to hold, because they'd have to do it in order to make it fiscally sustainable. So those are my thoughts, and I guess it gets down to really if we're willing, for me, if it's willing to be referred in with LM zoning, I can support it. I'm just very, very leery to do it with commercial zoning.
Your Honor, I think we have to keep in mind, which I hadn't, that the city manager did mention that we could indicate that we'd like them to discuss a reversion agreement if it were to go.
Yes.
My recommendation on that would be that you recall the applicant, rather than do the reversion agreement, recall the applicant and ask if they would be willing to consider a referral for the LM. And if they would, then it sounds like you would have your answer to that.
However, if I can add, if in fact, the proposal is to have some type of corner commercial, the LM would not be an appropriate zone for that corner commercial. You could refer for a double zoning, the major portion of the property for LM, and the corner piece for commercial. You've done that in other projects, most recently last year. That's a possibility also.
Well, if you're going that direction, then I'm going to tell you that I don't think that the commercial on the corner is appropriate either. I think if we want to have a sports center, we'll have a sports center, but to put more commercial out there is just inappropriate. Maybe they need it in order to make the finances work, I don't know, but I'm more than willing to look at the sports center, but when we start talking about another commercial center on the corner, I don't want to go down that road, and I personally can't support another one of these reversion agreements that hasn't seemed to work out too well yet. So I don't really want to go down that either. Joe does?
Just to make matters more complicated, there is another tool, a planning tool that you could consider, which is a specific plan, where we could draft specific general plan land use and zoning standards for this unique site and the unique characteristics and the unique use that could potentially preclude other uses. So that's another planning tool for the City Council's consideration.
But what zoning would you do that under, your LM or your?
It would be its own specific plan.
But then you would parcel it up, so you're still not addressing my concern of ending up with commercial on the corner.
It may or may not. It depends on how you draft the specific plan.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Trimley.
If we were to Mr. Vaca, if we were to do a specific plan, what, if any, impact does that have on the extant process, the existing process forward?
It'd basically be the same process. It's just we'd be drafting basically its own unique land use designation and its own unique development standards and zoning districts. And it could have different planning areas. So to speak to the point, you could say tonight that no one wants commercial on the corner, or you could say there may be a planning area with commercial on the corner and other planning areas for the sports complex facility.
Madam, after you.
Mr. Trimley.
No, I concur with you, Madam Mayor, relative to the split zone concept. I'm not comfortable with that. It seems to me the best approach at this point is to take Mr. Pierick's advice and recall the applicant and inquire of the applicant which road they would like to go, if in fact they would like to go that road.
He told us that, is the owner of the property here? Well, maybe they could be the ones to come and talk to us, because the gentleman, the applicant, said that it was the owner's preference.
And if you might state your name for the record, please.
Mayor and council members, my name is Tim Wolf, and I work with MF Daily Corporation. Daily family's been in the area for literally over 100 years. We are excited about this project, because it's something that we don't have in the community, and it's something I think that could be really well utilized. As far as the zoning, LM zoning versus commercial zoning, that is a concern of ours. It's a concern not that we want to go build, a commercial center. That's not what we want to do. But if for some reason down the road that this wasn't a successful project, we would have to decide what we want to do. It's our mainstay is agriculture in that area, and that's what we'd like. If this doesn't go through, it'll be agricultural for many, many years. We would have to take a look at the LM zoning to see, how that works with the applicant as far as, long-term process as far as the park. Because I know one of the things that they were really looking for is to have some small commercial use there that's consistent with the sports program. I mean, we're not talking about, I haven't heard anything about, it's a shopping center or anything like that. I mean, it would be a small restaurants, sports-related facilities to benefit the project. So did that answer your question, I hope? Or?
So you're basically telling us if we were tonight to approve referring it under the LM zoning, you would object to that?
No, I'm not saying that. I think it needs a little more study from not only the council, but from the ownership perspective and the applicant's perspective. It's clearly something that needs to be discussed because that's something that just came up tonight.
Right.
So.
My advice then would be you do not need to make a decision tonight. You discuss them tonight, but you don't need to make a decision on this item tonight. And from what I just heard from that speaker, it might be better to have this matter put over to a future hearing. Let the speaker talk to the owner, let the applicant team discuss it, and come back with a position on the issue, because their request was for a commercial. I've heard a number of council members indicate the preference for LM. Evidently, they're not in a position tonight to take a position. So it would be difficult, I think, for you to be making a decision in light of the lack of a statement of position from the applicant. And if they wanted to return at a future meeting in a month or however long, you could do that. That's an option.
Since we've started the process on our once-a-year night, then we can continue it without a problem.
You can.
And there's no time limit on that continuance?
There's no time limit. As a matter of fact, your policy expressly states that you can consider these items at your discretion.
Question?
Yes.
When they first came up, people, promoting this, and the doctor, wherever he is, came up and talked to us about, curing people ills of all types of injuries and so on. I thought it was kind of going to be built into that building somewhere, where they'd be there to treat them instead of a regular center here. Could this so-called center be put into that building in some fashion?
I believe the strategy right now is to have the sports medicine and the physical therapy and that type of thing within the building. The only thing that would be outside the building in that commercial area, and it's a fairly small area, would be restaurants and that type of thing. So people that are at the event, you've got multiple volleyball teams that go on for these tournaments for all day long, maybe 2 days, so they can go, so they don't have to go totally out in the community if they don't want to.
What I'm trying to say is that commercial part, though, being built in some fashion in or around this building, instead of out here by itself as a commercial center.
Absolutely. Yeah, that could be certainly looked at. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not, the purpose of the commercial was not to put it front and center right at the corner of, the Las Posas in Pleasant Valley. I mean, it clearly could be embedded in the project. Absolutely.
For consideration.
I have another question, Mr. Vaca. Tell us how restaurants are considered in an LM zoning, what you can have within that.
They typically aren't, to be honest with you.
We do have some, though.
We do.
We have some limited kind of takeout facilities, but other than that, it has to be associated with an existing warehouse type facility. But usually we don't have those sit-down restaurants in our LM zones.
What are the ones out on Poncho and?
There used to be one out on
Coffee Bean
Poncho.
and Tea Leaf has a coffee house.
No, there
inside
was
their
a restaurant across the street. It was called the something Stone, and everybody thought they could go out there and buy slabs of granite. I mean, it was a bad name for a restaurant, but we've had standalone restaurants in there before.
Well, I guess I asked the applicant, and then I also asked the council. It seemed to me that the best thing would be to continue this, to get some answers. You all can huddle and decide, having heard all of this, what you'd like to propose, and then we'll meet again and talk about it. Will that work?
I'll move to continue this item until a later date.
Second. Got
I
it.
have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes with Mr. Kildee abstaining. So with that, we will see you again. And so it's not a yes, it's not a no.
Nice facility.
So with that, I'm going to let all the people